In this video, I'm going to be covering how to use the find, and I want to explain that in the find mode, depending upon what device you're using and or if you're in a browser or on the cloud server, there are going to be different ways to access the information. The main thing is that when you go into the find mode, when you click on the find button, it's going to clear the screen and allow you to enter information for the appropriate field that you want to have or look up information in. Once you enter the information in, you would click the Perform Find button, and what the Perform Find button does is it finishes the find. I'm just going to show you what had happened when it says, oh, guess what? You provided a criteria that is not valid. The reason that is that I didn't add anything to the screen, or you will get another dialog if you did add data and it was not in the database. It would come up as that information is not found. Anytime you do that, you can come back in and say modify and then go back and re-edit it again and then do another find. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out here and bring back the data and point out that when you're doing a find, that you do not have to use the entire contents of a field. So for example, if I put in 03-00 or I put in hall or assembly, anything that has a matching piece of information within one or more fields that I put information in, that's what's going to come up on the find when you complete it. I can even go into numeric fields and look up a specific value dollar-wise in a range. Now, if you're doing a range in a find, I'm going to go down here and show you what you can do. So you would use the keyboard or your iPad key buttons, and you would key in equal to or greater than, and then maybe it's 1. That would be one way to do a find, as far as looking for anything that is greater to 1. And it could be a fraction. It could be 0.01. So you could find everything over 0.01, which would virtually find everything. Or you can look in a range. If you're looking at a range like from 0.01, and I did less than or equal to, and I said 10, for example, now it would find everything between 0.01 and 10. And in the same way, if I'm looking for that information and I want to look at it in the case where it's a date, I can actually use a date in this and replace the 01 for a date indicator. And for example, I could say, for example, like this is 7/13/2013. That's the US way of doing it. And then just replace this date and put it out as the end of the month. For example, 7/ let's say 30/2013, and that would be a date range find. So there are many ways to add information or find it, and you can get very specific in the kind of information you're looking for by using this information, which I'm going to bring over here. And what this is the operators that are used within the application. So for example, if I want an exact match, and I did not use the equal to or greater than or equal to, and I use just the equals, it will find the whole word or a match if it's empty. If I use match entire field contents and put two question marks, I'd have to put out the entire information that is in that field, and that could be done by copying and pasting. But you can also do the same thing by equals and putting copy and paste that in there with an equal sign. There is a find duplicates. Now this is used normally if you have something like an error where you're coming up with records that you do not want a duplicate in because you wanted a unique. You can use the exclamation mark, put something in that is a matching issue where you don't want it matching, it'll find those records. Less than, as we said down here, is less than whatever it is that you're putting in here. So that if I did less than and didn't use equals, it would find everything like on 7/29 and prior. But that would go all the way back for any records in the database. So you have to bound it by some manner. And that's where you use things like less than or equal to, or greater than and equal to, or greater than and greater than and equal to, which we're using down here. Now the operators may look a little different than this on the screen, but ultimately the conversion of that means greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. That's what it would look like when you typed it on the screen. A range is where you put in 3 periods and then you put a range value, which would be 10 or greater, or say 5 or less, that could be used. Dates are simply dates. You put in a date range like I did down here, or a date itself, and then invalid date or time. You put a question mark, and then you put something you felt was invalid, and that's what it'll find. Especially if you entered a date or time incorrectly and the actual information that's in there is not proper. Now, a ampersand, and you use that for any one character. So if I use that, it's like a wildcard. I could use ampersand and J, and then everything that has a J in it, no matter where it's at, would be found in that field. A pound sign is any one digit, like I could put 72 or 1 or whatever, and it would find that. This is a wildcard normally, a asterisk, 0 or more characters. Now, in that particular case, you could use the wildcard just like you do in a URL or some other fashion where you use it as a wildcard and then put anything after it to find that. But in most circumstances, your matches and equals will find the same information without having to go to this length. And backslash escape next character basically means just that. It puts a replacement in for other information and then you use escape the next character. So you do away with the character in the actual phrase or word that you don't want to have it look for, but you want to find the correct thing. Now this can be used where there's spelling errors, where you want to find things that are actually spelled incorrectly and go find those. Match a phrase from a word start. You can use that in a big note field like this down here, and you can put in a phrase, and that phrase would be found exactly as you put it in. Or, again, you can use the equals and put in a phrase, or you can just omit the equals and put in the word or somewhat of the word, and every record that has that word in it, like in a note field, would find each record that had that word in it. For example, if you put Tuesday and you're describing something where in a database where there's days in there by their day name, and you want to find everywhere where there's a Tuesday note in there, it would find every record with a Tuesday note in it. The last one is a match phrase from anywhere. This is kind of a obligatory thing that is kind of a shot in the dark where you want to find a wildcard and an exclamations where you put that wildcard factor in between the exclamations. And it's just not that useful in most cases unless you're really looking for something obscure. And then a relaxed search for kanji only, which is Japanese language, or one of the Japanese languages that are supported by the system. Those are not normally things that you would look for in an application unless you were Japanese. Now, obviously, one of the things you can do in addition to this is that you can find things that are in picture areas if there's a name in a picture area. So in this case, here's a portal with a name for the picture. And again, you can look for pictures that are related to, say, a mount bolt. So there's just as many ways as you can use this as you want to. If it were in an inventory system and you're looking for everything that had a weight measure like pound or gram or whatever, you can also use that in a descriptive field like this one has weight, height, width, and length. And then you could put something, for example, everything between so many pounds and less if you were going to look for that. So you can get the general idea of how this works. The last thing I want to cover is that you can also use IDs in a search, and also to point out if there are drop-down lists in certain finds, if you had them in the screen, when you click on something that has a drop-down, if it is not set up in a find where the drop-down will come in, you will have to type the information in. But if there is a drop-down present, you can pick whatever you want when you enter the find. Go ahead and enter find first, and then when you click in that field, it should give you a drop-down and that information so you can pick the phrase or words that you want to in your find. If you have any questions, as usual, and you need assistance, go ahead and just get a hold of me through the support site, or you can call me or send me an email. Thank you.